Global on the Mark Tribe. I've been so excited about this conversation, and I can't wait to bring it to you. And we've got David Bertoli on the line here with us. David, I mean, what you've been doing here since the 24th of July in 2024, I found you on Instagram. It's blown my mind. You have putting out such great stuff, and it's so good to have you. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me.
Okay, before we dive in, before we get to know you, because I'm excited, people can tell that I'm a golf junkie, golf swing nerd. This 3D golf analysis and these awesome videos you're putting out. I mean, you've covered golfers from their toes to their head to the tips of their fingers. You're covering everything. Of all of the stuff you've done the research on and made the videos, has there been one thing that's really kind of jumped out at you and you've gone like, wow, you know, that was a real discovery?
Yes, I think one of the hello.
Yeah, you got me. Yeah, we're here.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry, Mark. Okay, I lost you for a second. I think one of the most incredible things that after I developed this beautiful project was that I wanted to share as many information as I could, especially how small adjustment could really in the muscle and in the body could massively change the overall sequence and efficiency of the swing. So this is actually what really matters and what really brings the people to realize how simple things can really change the overall outcome of the swing.
I'll say so. Okay, now for the folks listening on audio, this is available on YouTube. I would recommend go to Mark Immelman, go and subscribe there, go watch the stuff because we're going to show some of David's incredible videos. And I was lucky to find the first one. And since then, I've been camping on your page. You can hear an accent. This is an Italian who's in Singapore. Give us the quick life story to get to how you got to where you are right now, David.
So I got a few injuries back 12, 14 years ago. I was playing and I decided to focus more on coaching. And I found out that I was enjoying a lot more coaching rather than playing. And then I got my first 3D graph in front of my eyes about that time. And then I got I love numbers and I fell in love. And I started looking for 3D systems and I started doing some research. I put my goals 10 years ago, and finally this year in July, actually managed to complete all. The last one was my research on the grip pressure in short game players, amateurs and professional. And it was 2.5 years of research. I collect a ton of data, and I presented at World Congress of Golf. It was amazing.
Okay, well, you know what's amazing to me? I've got an Italiano. Now, I've been lucky to I've worked in the European Tour. I love Italy. It's like my second home. Italians to me are creative. They're full of flair. You know, I wouldn't call them data crunchers, but here's you. I mean, you're kind of breaking the mold a little bit. Tell me a little bit more, please, because you played at a high level. This is so curious to me because you're Italian. You should be playing soccer. Huh? How do you get into golf?
Yeah. So actually, none of my relatives play golf. I was on the ski area. I was skiing every single day. And then one day I hit one ball with a friend and I fell in love. And because I'm very determined, I love putting 100% of my efforts. I started loving it, and 5 minutes away from my house was a golf course, and I decided to join the membership. It was very cheap actually, and was pretty nice because it was a promotion with the juniors. And actually, a couple of years later, I was already 3 handicap, and I was like surprised about it. Honestly.
I'll say so. Okay, if he's skiing, folks, he's in northern Italy. When I retire one day, my goal is to have a little house on Lake Como, and you'll never see me again. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
And David, we're just going to scroll through a few videos here, and we're going to ensure, or at least show folks, you know, what you have put together. And there are 37 videos already. So since July of 24, you've been prolific. I mean, you're churning this stuff out, and it's really high quality. And I reached out to David via WhatsApp, and I was like, I want to talk about this stuff. And then you came back with a couple ideas, and I was like, lovely, we can do this stuff. And the first one you talked about was how a poor takeaway hurts the backswing. Now, I'm going to play this video here in the side, okay? And folks, the video is going on, so go to YouTube. You can see the incredible images and the demo. It's almost like David's working in front of a green screen. And here's the first thing. You talked about the poor takeaway hurting the backswing. You've dove into it so deeply here in the graphics. Again, audio listeners, go to YouTube and watch how you talk about the scapular muscles in the shoulder, how they move forward and back, and how that can ruin the swing. So talk us through this concept, because everything in a good swing, or anything, if it starts well, there's more chance for success. So talk us through this concept of how a poor takeaway can hurt the swing.
Definitely. This is actually one of my favorite topic, which is the musculoskeletal side of the movement. Nowadays, when I'm coaching, I'm actually only looking at the movement of the body. That's why one of my quotes is, "It's not how it looks, but how it works."
Okay.
I want to see how the body works. I want to see how the club reacts, and I'm actually spending very little time on looking how the club working through the swing.
Right.
So this is great. This great kind of, for me, view is allow people to understand that moving the shoulders in front, or we call it protracting in front, is actually reducing tremendously the amount of external rotation you can see from the video now of the scapula.
Okay.
And one of the most important actually way for us to set a very nice backswing is to have the shoulders complex that they are communicating between each other. Is a sort of having a complex as having like a two solid foundation that are actually participating together throughout the takeaway around the spine. And you can see here, yes.
I want to stop you for a second, because this, and we're actually looking at the graphic right now where we're looking at the 3D golfer from overhead. It's like a muscular structure for the audio listeners. And you have circled the scapular muscles on the shoulder, and you've shown how they can actually almost slide back and forth on the rib cage. And as a golf teacher since 1995, I've seen so many golfers who get to the ball and the shoulders just get very internal, the upper body collapses, and then that muscular, that structure you talk about, it's like one's working against the other. And then they think about getting the club away, and all they do is they just snatch it away with their hands. I feel like you going to the shoulders here and how the arms move as a result, that mechanism, it would make it super easy. Am I correct?
Yes, because everything alters everything. Therefore, everything is affecting everything. So moving one little piece, we're moving the entire system.
Yeah.
And in particular here, I wanted to show how important it is to retract the shoulders. Obviously, we're not looking to really retract as much as like 100% backwards, but moving towards the retraction, it gives you the opportunity to connect the arms, the clubs versus the upper body. And we see, and you are also, Mark, one of those coaches, and we are fortunate enough to be on tour, and we see how now a lot of tour players, there is a lot of tendency to be closer to the ball, because they understand now how efficient the body connection can be in relationship to the stretch muscles, rather than trying to look at this kind of forward stretch to get this only width. They're actually helping, but not that much in the swing.
That's incredible. The point you make, and it's so logical, but it makes so much sense. You know, distance from the golf ball to me has such an influence on everything, including swing path, okay? Or how the club approaches the ball from which direction. And you're right. I mean, if I get these shoulders internal, rolled forward, I can reach way farther away from me than what I could if I got the shoulders retracted, the scaps retracted here. And like if I had to throw a golfer at you who I rarely see do this, I would say Adam Scott. I mean, like when he walks down the fairway, he's got the posture up. It's beautiful. There's never that hunched over, that slouched look. And at address, he's oftentimes said to me, he goes, if I nail my posture, the rest of it takes care of itself, or my address. And you're making the point here with where those shoulders are, that's going to set up a proper start of the golf swing too.
I like that, and I wanted to highlight actually the orientation of the arms at the address. which is generally speaking with the irons is like a 90 degrees to the floor, and with the drivers, with the woods, we're not that far away now from the 90 degrees. Maybe it's a little bit more in front, but generally they are pretty much close. One of the things that I wanted to highlight in this video is also the fact that people are trying to visualize this as a sort of only the shoulders retraction protection, but they don't see the entire picture. Because what I usually tell to my players is you need to have an active posture in order for you to respond actively into that position. If you are sitting down, if you have the weight on your heels, you're passive, you're behind, you're not going to be able to sustain or to help this beautiful movement, this beautiful stretch around the big muscles.
Sensational. You know, I'm watching the video, people, and it's incredible. We've seen a golfer who was just a skeleton with a golf club. David standing next to it. Everything in me wants to call you David. And then we've got the muscular version now, and you standing there sort of pointing at it. And as the club moves away, audio listeners, if the shoulders are internal or hunched forward, it's easy for the club to roll behind and get well across the line at the top. And here in 2024, we see Rory McIlroy spending a lot of time on the start of his golf swing, and he gets a bit of that look. And then if you watch Rory with driver, he does get a long way from the golf ball. And I'm wondering if this looking internally as to where the shoulders really are located could be a little something that may help Rory. Rory, if you're listening.
I wanted to actually add that because I received a couple of messages about Rory McIlroy address position using this video, and my answer was regarding this. Then they said this is not Rory McIlroy doesn't have a retraction position, retractor shoulders, but is protracted, because you can see from the video. And I replied to them saying that actually it's the muscles of the shoulders. They may look that is in a protraction position, but actually the shoulders are perfectly aligned. Okay. And you can see from behind, when you make a video from behind, you can see that the scapula is very closely aligned. And this helped tremendously on his takeaway. And if I'm not wrong, you might notice as well, right now he's trying to change that takeaway. Yeah. Making the right arm externally rotated straight away during the takeaway, so he can have the club a little bit more 45 degrees. I don't like to call it plain or flat or across, because depending on the style of the players, but more kind of towards the 45 degrees, because he wants to have the club more in front on the second part. So this is actually one of the perfect examples that Rory McIlroy now is trying to achieve and change.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through the screen now, and we're going down to the next tip. Superb stuff. The graphics are incredible. There are.
I need to thank my team. Actually, that is amazing, because I have 5 people working on this every single day, and it's being amazing. So
yeah, I'll say so. For a golf nerd, for anybody listening to this and Tribe, I know you are, because you're downloading a golf instructional podcast from wherever you're listening. The next thing you talked about kind of goes hand in glove a little bit with how you talked about the start of the swing, and that was your barrel concept. And for the audio listeners now, we're looking at David's, and there's basically, we're looking at the backside of a skeleton. And the barrel you're talking about is kind of the torso. Correct me if I'm wrong. So describe why you feel like this concept is just so important to people building more powerful, repetitive golf swings?
So I always start from a standpoint of view that for me is very important to look and achieve a very healthy movement. So the first thing that I look in my plays is the spine movement. So that is something that gives me the opportunity to understand how beautiful the relationship between the pelvis and the shoulders complex, or I will say upper body, is during the swing. And very often when we have some inefficiency during the backswing, the downswing, what I really need to go to the real cause, or the real root cause of it. And this is most of the time we'll say is at the address position. Okay. And I created these beautiful terms, which is the barrel concept, which is the relationship between the left system, which is the left shoulder, left pelvis, left knee, left toe, versus the right side, which is again the right shoulder, right hip, right knee, right toe. And the more these two are talking to each other or they are in relationship to each other, the more chances we have that the backswing will be healthy, will be powerful, will be connected. And if the backswing is connected, then we're going to have high chances that the downswing will receive a very good connection, a very, very beautiful, powerful, and healthy swing.
Yeah. You say here in the copy next to this video, you go, in this video, you can see how the top of the swing can be significantly influenced by address, sometimes resulting in stress in the lumbar spine. That's why, and it's something everybody misses on, and we kissed this already with Adam Scott, where I feel like golfers really don't take care in setting up properly to the golf ball. It sort of seems trite. It seems like, oh, whatever, I've just got to hit the ball. But if you set up poorly, then you have to make compensations for your poor setup, and you almost guaranteed to have to make a golf swing that's riddled with different adjustments to get the club powerfully and squarely back to the ball.
100% agree. Especially the pelvis area. When we have lumbar spine pain, we usually the first thing that we look is at the hips joint. So we look at the area. We look at how they are responding in our, especially when we run the first assembly scan. We trying to figure out if the hips, if the entire pelvis is responding very well during the swing, if there are any limitation or not. And then definitely the lumbar spine is something that has to be stable, has to be very well connected to the pelvis, because otherwise we have very high chances that it's going to overuse and create some huge, I would say, pain situation.
Okay, now I'm thinking about this in a practical sense. And this is for all golfers, because, they get the golf ball down on the ground in front of them. Now they situate the club behind the golf ball, whether the ball positions forward or back, or whatever the case might be, middle. And it's almost like they just kind of finagle their body. And if you're watching this, you can see me tilting one way or the other, just to kind of get the club back to the ball. Where I'm looking at this going, one should set up the mechanism, the structure of this area, find your posture, and then wherever the ball is, you fit yourself to that, as opposed to just fitting yourself to the ball. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to camp on that a bit more, because I gave lessons yesterday, and there were two in a row. The one guy had the ball way far back in the stance and was wondering why he was hitting blocks and hooks. And I moved the ball forward and it fixed itself. And incidentally, his posture changed when that happened. And then the other individual had the ball way far away from them, and you could see how they fell forward, how their trail hip sort of posted up, kind of like in your graphic over there. And from there was very little chance of making any sort of compact and certainly repeatable golf swing.
It's something that for me, what I realize is that the more I let my players speaking, the better it is. Because we need to really, we as a coach, we need to adopt on the players. It's not the player that need to adopt on us. And one thing that I realize is that how strong the intent of every single players can really influence tremendously the quality of the swing and also the address position. That's why one of the first thing that I want to understand is what is their intent, what they're looking for, what is the kind of behavior that they have the moment that there is a different ball flight that they are expecting, and especially also if the basic knowledge of the ball fly or of the ball position is going to it's like integrated in their golfing, because for me is absolutely important.
Mm. All right. Two incredibly important concepts that you pitched: the takeaway and the value of doing it properly, the barrel concept of the torso and setting it up properly and how it works, sort of the center of the golf swing. I picked this one because if you turn on the internet and you type in golf instruction, you're going to hear about wrist alignments and you're going to hear about ground reaction forces. And if you try me, I've done this, type in club head speed, you're going to hear ground reaction forces, using the ground, all that sort of stuff, first thing. And it's going to be like influx and everyone's talking about it. But there's a concept inside all of that if you understand where your center of mass is and how it moves, it's going to help you achieve all these things. So you've done a video on the center of mass. And so I want you to describe to golfers really what it is, because most golfers don't understand. and then what this video is about, because I feel like it's very, very important.
The center of mass is the center of gravity of our body, and usually is around the belly area, depending on if you're female, male is around the area. And it's actually the most important part is to understand how the forces reacts or works around the center of mass throughout the train.
Mm-hmm.
And this video wanted to highlight how the real center of mass is actually pretty much stable during the swing. People trying to have some confusion between center of mass and center of pressure. The center of pressure moves tremendously, moves from right to left very quick, but the center of mass is actually moving about 10 cm, which is something that if you look at the player from the front view, nowadays a great player, you can see a very, very like minimum movement away and towards the target.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I wanted to highlight in this video is that the maximum peak of the center of mass is actually achieved when we have the end of the pelvis movement or rotation at the top of the swing. And in that moment, because we didn't stop the club didn't reach the top of the swing yet. The mass is actually already starting moving down and towards the lead side, towards the lead foot. Because we are actually unweighting, so we're dropping ourselves down, we're getting lighter, so we can push and generating this beautiful ground reaction force around the mass.
Yeah.
And you can see that the red line there exactly shows how much the mass is actually anticipating the movement compared to the real top of the swing.
Yeah, the cool thing about this video, people, is David and his crew have used like a green dot in the middle of this 3D avatar image, this person swinging a club, and you can see the ground forces working, you can see how the body reacts to it. And your point is so well founded that this belly area, it really doesn't move side to side very much at all. Where I find so many golfers, they're trying to get to their lead side so quickly that they shift that center off there, they lose all sorts of shape in the swing, and then very importantly, they start landing the club in the wrong place, and miss hits are almost guaranteed.
Yes, you got the point. I cannot add anything else because it's perfect. Is totally it's like massive the information that we can get from this video. And once again, understanding the difference between center of mass and center of pressure, independently if you are two players or beginner amateur, is for me is vital, is essential.
I want to do one more thing here. I'm sure you've seen it in all the years of golf teaching. I'm sure when you were playing at a high level, you might have done it once or twice. It's an age-old drill where you put your ankles right next to each other. You get in your posture so your feet are together. You make some swings back and forth. And when I do that with golfers, they're astounded how consistently they hit the ball and how powerfully they hit the ball. But now when you're doing that, the center of mass is not sliding back and forth and all over the show. And they're like, but how can this be? And that drill with the feet together is absolutely hitting your concept here straight between the eyes.
I do that with my juniors, toe touch, left foot only.
Yeah.
So for the DR like above 14, I do with only the left foot and the right foot airborne. And we usually see that until 8-iron, we have a very, very similar distance. And what people unfortunately are confused is that, and it's one of the videos that I explain, is how actually we are thinking that the entire power, the entire energy is actually coming from the pelvis, which is actually not true, because the pelvis is interacting, is creating, is stretching only in transition. But after the transition, just a little bit after, the left arm, the lead arm, or the arms, generally speaking, they are taking over the speed already. So it's not about the pelvis. It's not about the pelvis only, but it's about the movement, the spiral movement that we should look for. Mark, do you want to hear this? I always say, it doesn't really matter if you have a Ferrari in your pelvis and a Ferrari in your chest, if you have a bicycle in your arms. You can't get the horses over there, so you can't get it, you know?
You know what I love about that?
It's better to have a BMW, you know? Get a BMW everywhere is a nice car, and accept it and go for it.
I love it. You would expect the Italian to use Ferrari over there. And what you say is so true, because I was raising my hand for the folks watching this, and I'm like, yep, when I was a kid, I read the Hogan book, The Modern Fundamentals of the Golf Swing. And, there was that thing of using your middle, and I was snapping my pelvis out of the way so fast to get more speed. I lost club head speed because I was just focusing completely on this area, which is a stabilizer. And I hit the right side of the target as sure as I'm talking to you right now.
It's funny because it's like when I ask people to like really feel their arms fast, they look at me and they say, do you mean I just need to swing with the arms? And I said, yeah, try it. And then the speed goes up. So they look at me and said, why is going up? And then I need to explain to them because as a reaction of the muscles, I tell them because it's very easy. The faster you actually move your arms down, the quicker actually the body resets and the faster you go. So stop thinking to move only the pelvis. And
Okay.
they start laughing and they start enjoying it.
All right. For the folks watching now, they're probably looking at the screen and they're seeing some of the graphics. And to the left of the concept I want to talk about is pros, don'ts, and what pros do. We're not going to talk about that. You can go to David's Instagram profile and go check it out. I want to talk about what you talked about, unlocking the X factor and the X factor stretch. And I'm sitting here and I know Jim McLean well. He's like a mentor to me. He wrote that article about it, the X factor. It went crazy. Everybody misunderstood it. He came and talked about it on the show a couple times. And you've done a beautiful job. We're looking at this golfer overhead. You've got measurements of how much the thorax, the pelvis, the stretch between the areas are moving. And you talk about this. If you're trying to stretch the X factor early in the backswing, you can actually injure yourself a little bit. So I want you to decode this whole thing because the movement of the pelvis, I feel like very much fits in with what you're talking about here with this X factor stretch and where it occurs.
So this is we need to look at this as a rubber band. So the moment that we are separating the upper body and the lower body, the rubber band is already stretching as much as possible, but reach a point where you can't stretch anymore. So you need to, if you want to look for any extra stretch, it goes into those areas where you're more fragile or you're more like you're not used to move, or you can't move it anatomically because the lumbar spine, the movement of the spine on the bottom is like very minimum, and that is where the injuries start from. And what is basically came out is that instead of moving this and creating this strongest factor at the beginning of the takeaway or during the first part of the backswing, is actually better if you release a little bit more the pelvis, you kind of following the entire sequence, and then in transition you have a little bit more room where you can create this beautiful extra stretch that gives you a little bit more rubber band. And the faster you, and sorry, the more you stretch, the faster it's going to recall back.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy to understand this concept, and one of the most beautiful kind of I will say way of developing that is just putting one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, trying to rotate on the backswing, the upper side, keeping your belly stable, and then you're going to figure out that until a certain point you can't move anymore, so the pelvis needs to activate, and that is where everything is generating this beautiful energy, this beautiful stretch around the muscles.
And then I feel like in terms of the sequencing of the downswing, because now we're looking at it now where we're looking at the 3D golfer overhead. And then as the transition happens, those two segments you talk about, it's like the pelvis area just stretches a little bit in the opposite, goes back to the target in relation to the upper body. And it's not drastic. It's just enough to create that stretch and then things go. It's not like it keeps pulling in front there and pulling the golfer out of position. I think that's, in my opinion, in all my experience, a point that's been misunderstood by so many golfers because they hear from their teacher, they're like, the lower body needs to lead. So they keep moving it out of the way. And then to your point, the arms never really ever catch up because the upper body is trailing in behind there as well.
Yes, and if the variable gets stuck, we are done.
Yeah,
We can't cover anymore.
Yeah, sounds like, folks, that's the professional golfer talking about there, because being stuck is the good player challenge. So this one about the understanding or unlocking this X factor stretch is so telling. And again, all the graphics are so worthwhile. So go and check them out. The last one I want to talk about, I've got to scroll down a little bit here and find it while I'm talking, is, everyone talks about wrists and torso and pelvis and hips and head movement and stuff like that. But you did a video on trail knee flow. Now there's lots of videos in here about how the trail arm works, and I was like, let's go there. But you know what? Since we've been working and you've talked about how the body works, you're very interested in that and where it works in space. As your legs are underneath you, they have a big influence on where the rest of the body is moving in space. And you're, I think, the first guy I've ever talked to, or at least seen, where you've talked about how the trail knee, the back knee, how it works throughout the swing. So talk about this, please, because I feel like it's really eye-opening.
You actually anticipate our next topic, which is going to be released next week. It's about purely the trail knee.
Okay.
And this is how affect tremendously the chain of the muscles of the right side of the right leg, which is affecting the movement and the motion of the right hip, and therefore is going to change completely also the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see, so basically the knee has a 1 degree of motion, which is flexion extension. But at the same time, depending on the axis of rotation, that it can be from the tibia, from the bottom, or from the tibia, from the hip joint, you can create some rotation, and that rotation is actually essential. The tibia rotation is about is very little. Is about, we're talking about 10 degrees. But if we look and we see the right knee participating in rotation through the axis of rotation of the trail hip, we see how beautiful the trail hip can load, so it can extend and flex at the same time, generating this beautiful stretch along from the glue that goes around the left leg. And this is impressive. This is amazing.
It truly is. And look, I'll be a bit self-serving here because my eldest daughter's golf swing is fantastic and she's powerful. If she has an issue, it's kind of like Justin Thomas, where the harder she goes, the more the trail knee kicks straight outward toward the golf ball, causes a big loss in posture, pushes the handle out in front of her too much, the club head gets behind, and then you have to react and recover. Where this is not just showing like how the knee works, and it's focusing on the trail knee, the video right now, but it also shows the timing of sort of where it works in space and how it works in relation to the backswing, downswing, and then contact. And I feel like people, because we get so ball bound and we have to hit this golf ball, that we kind of lose the focus for the fact that, hold on, we've got these legs and knees underneath us that as they move in space, they can situate us to make a proper swing without even worrying about things.
It's actually, I love it. This is an excellent point. And I like to highlight the fact that the more you think about pelvis and legs, the better your swing is going to be, because the majority of limitation that we see in the golf swing, like most of the time, happens around the pelvis. So if we're able to make the pelvis moving efficiently, we have a very high chances that the swing is going to work out very well and to compress the ball very well.
Incredible stuff. Just 5 videos again, folks. They're 37 there. You need to go check it out. I've kept you up late in Singapore because it's early in the morning where I live in Georgia in the United States. Thanks for joining us, David. I've loved this. I've loved to get to know you. I love that you bring like a playing element to this very in-depth stuff. And you have this very in-depth, very detailed graphics that you're making them appear simple. And there's a question coming in this. I gave a lesson yesterday, and there were 2 beginners, and they'd seen a couple golf instructors, and they basically had so I said, well, what have you learned? And she said to me, I must do this, I must do this, I must do this, I must do this, I mustn't do that, and I must do that. You know the list, right? And I looked at her, I'm like, that sounds hard. And then I broke the whole thing down to say, look, right now, let's just land the club in the right place in relation to the golf ball. I don't care how you do it. Swing back, swing through, land the club in the right place. And as soon as she started doing that, all this other stuff she was trying to do started to organize itself. Okay. Now, here's my statement. This is like your parting shot. because you talk about the value of where the body moves in space to help this club land. Um, through it all, there's this unwritten message as I look through your videos where it's about swinging as you move too. And you kissed it when you talked about the arm swing. Give us the parting shot. Say, okay, you can focus on the stuff, but in the end, remember, this is about hitting a golf ball a certain way. You've had to do so for a living. Talk us through that a little bit, please.
I think one of the things that is missing in the golfing world is this beautiful way of swinging the club in a very in a very fluid way.
Yeah.
We're missing what is the meaning of releasing energy. What is the release of the club? People are trying to move the big muscle in every single moment rather than connecting and understanding that at the end of the story, the club is attached to the arms. Therefore, the arms is like they need to get speed in order to get the club speed on. And one of the most beautiful, I'm not sure if you do, Mark, but I love doing some comparison during my classes. Like it's like throwing the ball. If you throw the ball and I make them in front of the camera and ask them to throw it, and I show them how they like reaction in an action or how the body is moving, the hands and the arm is moving on the opposite direction, but then the recoiling is moving fast. And when they are understanding and have better information, the performance, the way they are interpreting the movement, they look at me and they said, oh, but it's so simple. Yes, of course it's so simple, especially if you have a history where you have done like a bit of coordination, balance, explosion, which is for us is mandatory for our juniors. For our juniors, we do 3-hour session every day of the week who wants to come, and we do 1 hour of fitness and 2 hours golf. And we have these beautiful players, 12, 13 years old, swinging 100 miles per hour. And you look at them and they look like so easy. And when you compare them with your swing, and they said, why they are able to generate that speed and they are so young, and I'm here and I'm 30 years old and I cannot generate that speed. And then you discover that all the information that they have, they are like so like fighting to each other and they are not free.
Yeah. Hey, you got me thinking because that is so true. And by the way, folks, in David's videos, there is a 3D on skipping a stone or throwing a stone was. So he's talked about that in there too. But here's the thing. I want your commentary here, please. Golf is crazy because we're trying to hit the ball at a target. And we're standing to the side of the ball and we make a swing that's an arc. It's not a straight line. It's three-dimensional. And everything squares up at the right time to get the ball to the target, which, if you truly think about that, makes you realize how great a straight shot at the target actually is and what the chances of that are. Okay. And we live in this era right now where you see so many videos that are talking about the rate of closure or club face stabilization and not flipping and all this sort of stuff, where the truth of it is it's a momentary lapse in time. And there's so many things going on that it's somewhat miraculous at times if you hit a straight shot. But if you do what you're talking about and understanding where you can move in space, that 3D circle becomes a bit more reliable. Are you kind of getting where I'm going here?
100%. It's more about the preparation phase that matters. It's not about the actual impact, because the impact is actually the outcome of the entire movement. It's like when you're going for a competition. If you don't train properly before the competition, don't expect that yourself is going to make like playing under par.
Yeah.
So the most important concept is what happens before the impact. And if you think that you are not moving the club properly, you're not moving the club properly, then probably you need to go backward and see how the backswing is. And if you think that the backswing wasn't low enough, probably you need to start from the barrel concept, from the least shoulder maybe that is tensing up, is creating this disconnection from the scapula, from the scapula or from the shoulder complex. Everything is like connected.
Would you have competed and played or swung the club differently back then if you had known stuff you know now?
100%. Yeah, I recall many lessons that I had with very important coaches around the world. And but definitely is due also to the fact that there were not much research involved, there was not much information about it. But nowadays, with the social media and with the with our smartphone, we have a lot more access to very important information. But then, even though we have a lot of information, I still see coaches that they are like teaching these ways that I feel sorry, because it's your job. You should have like the opportunity to open the book, to open your Chrome, your Safari, and look, how can I be better? Because for me, every single day that I wake up, I want to be 1% better with my family, with my kids, with my wife, with my work, with my players, with everything. So it's very important. How can I be better? What do you think? I think it's essential for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm listening to you and I'm looking at you, and we sort of players from a similar era, and we both turned to golf instruction, and we both have a passion for just bringing the truth. Because the reality of it is there's a bunch of charlatans out there that are giving golf advice, like this lessons I got yesterday. There was some guy that had said all this stuff to these poor golfers that had no idea, they still couldn't hit the golf ball. And you have to
Yeah.
then wonder, if you've taken lessons and you're not getting better, something's wrong. And it's probably not you. You don't have a proper understanding of what's required to propel this golf ball.
Right. Is the way that we communicate is really, really important. And I've noticed that the majority of my lesson I spend on trying to disrupt, trying to eliminate all the swing thoughts that they have. And then I come out with a very simple exercise, a very simple swing thought. And this is change completely the entire movement. And the simpler we are, the easier it is for us to make our clients happy.
Okay, folks, as you look through this wonderful timeline, I want you to remember all the time what David's just said: eliminating excess swing thoughts, because we can get a little too locked up in all this cool stuff. You doing all this to help understand the overall concept so the swing becomes more simple. David, fantastic. Please share for the folks where they can go to find all this stuff. What's the website? What's the social media handles?
So the website is the social media is 3D Golf Decoded, and we are opening soon our website 3D Golf Decoded, but you can find us on DB Golf Center. If you look at the logo, is actually inverted. It's amazing how I came up with this idea when I developed the 3D Golf Decoded, and I found that my logo is actually inverted. It becomes 3D, so it's kind of easy
You know what?
to connect that.
I think that's the angels getting involved. You're doing heaven's work. You really are. What you're doing is tremendous. I'm thankful I found you. I'm so glad you would join us and share the insights. Appreciate you, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me, and it was great meeting you.